There are horror icons. There's Freddy, there's Jason, there's Pinhead, there's Chucky. But then there are iconic horror actors.
Fasten your seatbelts. I never set out to become a horror icon. Something I wasn't planning, it's just something that happened.
Like most actors, you don't realize that this is going to be a life-changing moment.
If the guy behind the makeup isn't selling it right, then it doesn't work.
Can't have any style of film without having a charismatic person at the helm.
He brought so much into Freddy, the way he built Freddy.
Robert still managed to make him not just horrific, but likable.
That's why you hire an actor.
And he's Robert Englund, for God's sake.
Now that's some prime time.
We made a lot of fun of him and what Freddy had become, and it was just really amusing and crazy.
There was a huge crowd. They started rocking the trailer. It was scary. I mean, we thought we were going to be tipped over.
I didn't know this was so serious.
Freddy killed children, and he had a television show.
And it really appeals to a young audience because they enjoy the rending of these bodies on screen. And so Robert is a de facto uncle to this audience.
Mr. Knifey Hands is here, right?
I think I've ended up partying with Robert more than I ended up working with him.
I like it.
Here was a guy, as a character actor, could have, I think, done anything. However, having done Freddy, he's iconic, and yet it was oddly limiting for him.
And I think assumptions get made about horror actors that they're less than, and it's unfair.
I thought a little bit about fighting it.
Robert walked in, and I thought, oh, this is just so right.
I just go to Robert. I need you to play Buckman. I'll only do it if it's hee-haw and acid.
Welcome to Pleasant Valley.
He's hyper aware of what lens is on the camera. What's the, not just what the angle of view, but what's the lens.
He's one of those film actors who understands film.
Robert as a fellow actor is a dream.
He's Shakespearean.
Robert Englund's a great actor. It's as plain as that.
That is a background. Wow. Oh man, you've outdone us here, right?
Welcome to the inside of my brain.
That's amazing. That's such a cool backdrop.
Thank you. You would probably appreciate over here is a face mold of Peter Cushing that looks like he's alive that I've had for a few years. So, and Dr. Decker back there is new. So
brilliant. No, yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, I need to know where both of you live so I can come steal everything.
You never find us.
Yeah, if we merge together, we are Nerd Voltron at this point. Thank you. Well, guys, thank you so much, Christopher and Gary. It is a pleasure to meet you. I've been a fan of your work. I absolutely loved the Fright Night documentary you guys did. Just amazing stuff. And this just really hit home for me because if you can't tell, I'm a little bit of a Freddy girl, and I've loved Robert Englund since I saw V. I mean, that was really it. And I've got a lot of questions. But first and foremost, there's not many icons like Robert Englund who have just embraced the world of genre like he has. And I'm just wanting to know how you build a documentary about a life like this. Where do you even start?
It starts with the first conversation with Robert, really. I mean, it was always from day one that our agreement was going to be, we would explore Freddy Krueger, but obviously it was the man beyond the fedora and beyond the glove. And I think, when someone's had such a long career like Robert's, in a sense, from the theatre to, the comedy kind of films, even dramas, and then the sci-fi, and then getting into horror, you can see that it's a really beautiful career, really. It comes from the stage as a classically trained actor. And you talk about icons. He's very much up there with the Peter Cushings, Christopher Lees, Lugosi's, and Vincent Price. He's very much, I think, he's in that group of people. So I think it was really kind of like, it wasn't really hard, really. The hardest part was obviously trying to pepper Freddy throughout it, but not rely on Freddy too much. And it's really difficult in a documentary like this, where Robert is worldly known because of Freddy. So that was a difficult thing, I think, wasn't it, Chris? Trying to kind of like shape a documentary around Freddy, but not have Freddy kind of like overpower it.
It was kind of like a fun challenge because, like, like yourself, as you'd know, like we're all nerds here. we all know that if you say, oh, we're going to do a Nightmare on Elm Street documentary or do something that someone else has already done in such a great way, like Never Sleep Again, then we're just going to get laughed at. Right. But it's always hard to think this, like the chicken and egg nature of it. But we want to make a documentary that's about the man. You know, Nightmare on Elm Street's been done, but it's got to be done, you know, and it's kind of then builds the foundation of the dichotomy of the point of the documentary. You know, what are the pros and cons of being such an iconic character and being almost stitched together with him that could obviously help blossom your career, but at the same time, maybe limit it. So I think the challenge I kind of enjoyed, certainly in the edit stages, was he's going to be in there. I mean, admittedly, if you look at all the artwork we've got, it's predominantly Freddy. You know? But in a way, that's us kind of, you know, I think there's no other way around it than to utilize that Freddy image to go, oh, you know, this guy, you know, everyone knows him. Oh, let's just take you a bit beyond that. So that kind of dictated, in a way, the edit of the documentary. We knew we were going to be covering the Nightmare on Elm Streets. I've watched all the documentaries like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Streets, God knows how many times. Every time I watch the whole films, I watch the whole documentary straight after every year. But it was quite a fun challenge to kind of go back over that. But I'm hoping, in a way, I've not watched it in a while now, Never Sleep Again, but kind of coming at a different angle. Let's go through the beats of how he got the role and Wes Craven, et cetera, et cetera. But then we kind of I find we shoot right off into a different direction of the legacy elements of it and just how wild a ride it was. It's basically, as I've used the analogy, I think the first half of the documentary, in my mind, I always just think Scarface. It's that rise to power and then bam, montage. So, you know, and it still ends up being about 20 minutes long, but hopefully we dish out things that other documentaries might have not alluded to before, and what impact that was having on his life, his career, and just how insane it got, really.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, I've always treated Wes Craven's New Nightmare as a separate film. Leave some breathing space for that. What's the context of that film? And same for Freddy versus Jason, and then ultimately the Goldbergs. So it was a delicate balance, but I think if you're strict and you honor the truth of the chronological events of history, it's sort of, that's what we kind of work to, really. So yeah, we definitely utilize it's Freddy. But look at this stuff.
One thing I wanted to ask you guys, because like I said, I'm not lying when I say I fell in love with Robert Englund when I was like, when V came out, which I think was 11, I was 11, something like that. But I was curious if when this hits, because I want everything. I'm like, give me everything you have. Was there a moment or anything done about the series Nightmare Cafe? Because I loved that. I know you have to cut stuff for time, but I was just curious.
Chris, go on.
I've talked enough. I'm going to be terrible. I forget. Is it Jack
Coleman?
Jack Coleman.
Lindsay, and it was the Wes Craven. He played Blackie, the cafe owner.
Yeah,
that's right. And I'll throw my hands up. I've actually never seen it, so I'll throw my hands up.
I actually have it on a pirate.
I think it is like a bootleggy thing, isn't it? And obviously, they were quite
NBC
limited.
never released it, and I'm so angry.
No, and it looks interesting as well. It's kind of like from that era of television, I like, just before it found its feet. However, yeah, we did interview Jack Coleman, but I think the decision was made before I kind of had much intervention, where there was no way to integrate it into the storyline. And I've got to be honest, it's a really tough thing when you have to make those dramatic cuts.
Oh yeah.
Another film, Dance Macabre, actually got cut. However, we actually made sure that they appear as bonus features when the physical release comes out.
Yay.
And it's only about approximately 6 minutes, I think, the Nightmare Cafe one. And it's actually solely on Jack Coleman, who just sort of talks about his experiences working with Robert. And obviously the fact it's one of those shows that could never really find its feet. However, if it was cliched sentence, isn't it? If it was made today, it'd be fine. But back in the early 90s, it was a bit of a rogue area. So we've got that and Dance Macabre. But yeah, in terms of the narrative, it's the battle we always face with all these projects. And I'm sure, having watched, You're So Cool, Brewster, we can go far and wide with these documentaries. 4 hours long. Our first documentary on Hellraisers, 7 hours long for just 2 films. And we've kind of subsequently been learning how to make things lean and mean. We were kind of advised. And then, to be honest, the criticism we get always on these projects, general public, oh, it's too long. the horror nerds who want more, it's
Yep.
not long enough. So you've got to kind of just strike that middle ground and go, that's it. We're calling it. We're calling it. So we did cover it, and for it, but it's its own little piece. So
yeah,
I do a series on Joe Blow that's basically each episode's a biography about a horror icon or celebrity or a horror host, and every time, like I had to cut Castle Freak from Jeffrey Combs, and literally everybody's like,
where is
dare
it?
you?
I think I watched your one because did they have that one where you were where you did the
Robert.
Zoom, like Robert?
Yep. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was me.
it's the normal. It's the normal. If it might sound weird, but I watch Joe Blow videos.
Yeah.
So
That was you. You were the comment.
So yeah, sorry. There you go. Picture. I watch Joe Blow videos in the bar. What the fuck happened to and all that? Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
that's me. Oh my God. No, so I completely get your pain. I completely understand, because it sucks, because especially with, and that was one thing I was going to ask, with Robert Englund, he's done so much. It's like, how do you pick from all of this? Like, there's like, I'm like, oh, well, he did this show back in the 80s with Michael Nuri, where he was a con man and the cop, and no, it's all in there. So you can't do it all.
It's really difficult again, because it's like, we want to cover everything, but you just can't. It'd be literally 14 hours long. So what we do is we reach out to everybody we can possibly reach out to who's worked with Robert. And obviously there's some films that we're going to have to cover, because we are going to get rollocked by the fans. So we cover the likes of, Wishmaster, Urban Legend, Freddy vs. Jason, of course, 2001 Maniacs, Eaten Alive, to get those films in. But it's also trying to find people who can contribute to those stories. So sometimes it's quite easy to get people to come and talk about them, other than just Robert. When we can't get anybody to talk about it, it's obviously then it becomes so much difficult to try and find the narrative then. Because what we don't want, as much as we love Robert and we can listen to him all day, is you just don't want a documentary just Robert talking at you for 2 hours. I mean, it'd be a great doc for
you just put a bottle of wine in front of him.
Well,
and
exactly,
he'll do it.
yeah, exactly. So it's our phrase we've kind of developed over the few years is about finding gold. Really, we try and find gold in interviews and obviously in the narrative. So again, people have messaged me the other day. I had an email from someone going, "Have you covered Babylon 5 episode that starred Robert?" And the same issue we had with Nightmare Cafe is, where does it fit in the narrative?
Right.
And where does it drag the narrative somewhat as well? We didn't want to do it. And there's a little element of it, unfortunately, but because it's going to be, you don't want a filmography, film. We've got that, and we did a lot of work to try and obviously resolve that issue. But it would have just been then, and then next film, next series, next film. And so it's real tight, really difficult to do.
It's our first go doing this, to be honest, of someone's career.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. That was great. You did such a good job with it.
Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
We're really happy.
I mean, we're pretty happy with it, I think. Yeah. Like we've never done it before. We didn't rest on our laurels that we've done the other ones. It was kind of a conscious challenge to do something different. Because I think within reason and respectfully, I think doing deep dives on individual films is kind of straightforward if you know the template. You're covering these films for the effects, the casting, the backstories, the narrative, But when you're doing someone's career, that was my kind of biggest mandate, because God knows there's plenty out there of these list, film, and that gets a bit monotonous. And then there's the chance of like, well, it needs a bit of drama, and there's a lot of documentaries out there now about people. You've got Schwarzenegger coming out. Michael J. Fox has just done one, which I haven't seen yet, which I'm a bit too scared to watch. I'm a bit like, I don't know if I want to see that one yet.
It's gonna be a rough watch. But one thing that I really liked that you did with this one, besides, by the way, props to you for giving so much to Phantom of the Opera.
There was more.
That movie, I was one of 2 people in the theater when that came out, and that movie, I just love it to so much. The reason, part of the reason was that movie got a letter of mine in Fangoria when that came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I wrote to them about how much I loved it, and they published it, and I screamed. But fun fact, that was back when they put your address with the letter.
Oh, really? Gee.
And I got a mail from a convict in prison, so that was interesting at like 15.
and here he is today,
and here he is now. Yeah.
I married him. No. But the other part of this that was really great to see was how you focused on his interaction with the fans, because I've assisted Robert at shows before at Horror Hound Weekend, and by the end of the day, my hand was like this just the first day because I was doing the Post-it notes of what they wanted on there. So I literally wrote as many as he did. And each time he had such a beautiful interaction with the fans. It just was so great. He's a consummate storyteller. And I just really loved you including that in this.
I think it's really important as fans ourselves. And I've witnessed him in Germany. I didn't really go and speak to him. I was too nervous, but I was actually on our own kind of like stall promoting our work, obviously back in Brisbane Brewster days, this must have been. And Robert was just round the corner from us, and the queue was around the block. I remember saying to obviously Adam at the time, who was there, you know, his queue's going to be on for like 9 hours, and people are still in it. And I think it was really important for us to show that, because sometimes I think Kane says it as well. It may take the bonus features, it might. I'm not sure it's in the main doc, but sometimes you get some actors who just don't want to be at conventions.
Yeah.
And you can tell that. I'm not going to mention names. I've been there where people just don't want to be there. They're quite dismissive of the fans. And I think Kane says in the doc, you don't have to be there. And I think the difference with Robert is he loves being there. He just loves talking to fans. And I think that he's in his element when he's speaking to people. And what I like about Robert is he doesn't talk down to people. He talks with them. He talks about their lives and their families, and they'll ask questions. And then the conversation becomes about them and not him. I think that's why I think he's there, you know, without repeating myself, with the, you know, as a horror icon, but head and shoulder above some of the others who are brilliant. He's that elevated somewhat because of how he presents himself and how he's an ambassador for the genre. And I think, you know, that's what was so important to include that in the doc. Really important.
That's great. Yeah, and again, it's so great to see. I know I'm about to lose you, but it's so great to see what I call suave horror, and that's what he kind of epitomizes, like along the lines of Vincent Price. And it's so great for you to get a biography and a story like this in the middle of it happening. Like you've captured something that's a legend happening at that time, and have it forever like this. So thank you.
I think it's really important to us. I don't have much time, but obviously there's a picture on back of me here of our friend Don Kaufer, who's from Return of the Living Dead, and Don was really close to us. He's like a family member, and I still to this day believe Don didn't get the credit he deserved, and it was only after he passed away suddenly every single news outlet is talking about how amazing he was as his character actor from the 70s to the 80s and 90s. So and this not being morbid, it's great for us to do a project like this where Robert's still here and he can appreciate it, and he can go to the screen on the weekend and have a standing ovation, and people can then look beyond his Freddy Krueger roles. And hopefully for us, that's what people will do. They'll go and watch, say, Hungary. They'll go and watch Buster and Billy, of all things. They'll go and watch, you know, revisit V. And I think that's really important to us. And I think that's my proudest moment, obviously, achievement of all of this is to celebrate him when he's here, so he can witness it, as opposed to, unfortunately, you know, when we all have to pass on, you know.
Yeah. That's why I always tell people, if you get a chance to meet your heroes, just tell them how much they meant. Seriously, don't hesitate, do it. Well, guys, thank you again so much for doing this. It means so much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys so much, and continued success. Keep making these. They're beautiful.
Cheers. Really
I'll keep watching Joe blow in the bath.
Yes. I will keep that in mind. Like, gotta be entertaining. He's in the bathtub.
I hope you like shrimp, because just imagine that.
Shut the on that bombshell, thanks.
A little ginger shrimp.